This video will show you the 3 most powerful ways for communicating with the universe. I'm going to show you practical tools that you can apply in order to make that something that's effective and powerful at the same time. And welcome back to another video. My name is Aaron. I help people expand their consciousness. Now in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you the most powerful ways and the most powerful tools I found for being able to effectively and powerfully communicate with the universe. Now, the idea behind this is really understanding that the universe is always going to support us 100% of the time. But the way I'm going to explain this is going to be in understanding how our definitions create our reality and how we will always get 100% of a reflection of the definitions that we impose on it. Now, I'm also going to be showing how we can go about really connecting to what I call our higher self or the universe in general, and how when we do that, we take a lot of the weight on our back so that things happen in a much more smooth way. Some people would say that this is more about allowing rather than trying to control and trying to make everything happen. Our job of our ego is at a certain level, and that's what I'll be explaining as well. So the first one that I have for you has to do with understanding the idea of trust. The universe and us having trust is about really knowing that we always have a 100% trust in something. It just depends on what that something is. So let me explain this to you. You might ask yourself, how can I believe in myself more? Well, it's not that you necessarily need to believe in yourself more as you need to be aware of what you are believing in about yourself. So you might say, I have a lack in some idea. I have a lack of abundance. You don't really have a lack of abundance. You have a 100% trust in your lack. You see, it sounds almost the same, but there is a difference. When you are aware that it comes from a belief in lack that is causing that perpetuation, you can then let that belief go, because that belief is always going to give you a one-on-one reflection of what you believe to be true. Now, it's the same way with the universe. The universe will always support you at a 100% level, but the degree of it will depend upon what we are focused on. Are we focused on the perspective that we aren't supportive or that negative things always happen? Well, it's always going to be a mere reflection. So become aware of what your definitions are. The first thing I did is I became aware that the universe supports me. And of course, it'll support me in the positive or the negative, depending upon my own definitions and what I'm aligned to. But more important than that, I know that when I'm focused on positive, I always get more of that because of the belief I have. So a very positive belief to have is that you are always supportive. When you believe that, that becomes a self-perpetuate belief. That becomes something that is a self-fulfilling prophecy. So the thing I encourage you to do the most for this step is to believe that the universe supports you 100% and to realize at the deepest level, it supports you 100% of the time. But then what this does is this allows us to go inwards to decide, what do I have 100% trust in? Because I always 100% trust in something, but that something may be a belief in lack. It may be belief in things aren't working out. But what that does is that allows us to target whatever that belief is to then decide and say, here's that belief, I choose to let it go. Here's the focus that's not serving me, I choose to let it go. So you see, this is probably one of the most powerful things we can do, is realize we are always 100% supported by the universe. We are always 100% supported in what our definitions are. The second way that we can most powerfully communicate with the universe has to do with understanding the power of our ego, but also the power of our higher self. And understand that our higher self, the universe, God, whatever label that we give it, is something that is much more powerful than what our ego thinks it can do. Think of it as our big self, or the capital S self, and the little self, or the ego self. Now, the idea is that we don't want to crush the ego. So many times you might hear people say that the ego is the enemy. We need to crush the ego. the ego is necessary to have a physical experience. The ego is necessary to guide us and to give us the interpretations of what we do want to experience to what we don't want to experience, to the goals that we have, that decides how we relate to the outer world. It is necessary to a certain point. The problem is that many times we become identified with the little ego, and we think that our little ego has to do absolutely everything. And sometimes this is a trap when it comes to the law of attraction, because we believe that we must do every little thing. We must monitor and take inventory of every little thought, and we must resist certain thoughts and want certain thoughts. That's where a lot of resistance is built. Now, the power is in knowing that it's about the alignment with our ego self to our higher self. Now, you can think of this alignment in the form of the communication being the feeling of passion. That's one of the most powerful things you can do, is align your passion and your intuition to that of your higher self. Now, an easy way to do this is to simply trust the process. Trust the course of your life. Be open to different opportunities. Be open to how things will happen. Our ego self can have a certain vision for what we want to create, can have certain intentions even. But the idea is that if we're so focused on how everything must happen, that causes resistance, and that may be a limitation within itself. Now, what I mean by that is imagine and realize that what the best case scenario we can possibly imagine from our ego self, it might be a certain scenario, but many times that is the absolute floor for our higher self. It might be the ceiling for what we can imagine, but how it could happen could be much more grand than we can even imagine. Now, the power in knowing this is realizing that as things come into our life, the how of things happen, the how may be much better than what we could priorly thought from our ego self. So the idea is to set the intentions, to have the vision for what we want to create, but to be open to how those things manifest in our life, to follow the feeling of passion, to know that we can focus on how those things are integrative, and then things will be much more powerful for us. Follow the feeling of passion. Understand that if you feel feelings of resistance, of negativity, it's coming from a focus that is out of alignment with your higher self. Your emotions are a guidance system that is telling you where you stand in conjunction with your higher self. So as you focus on that passion, as you focus on your guidance system, you become aware of your intuition, and then you can really decide to simply surrender control, and that's where you actually, paradoxically enough, have the most control. You are letting go of it from your little self, and your higher self can bring through things in your life. This is where you can really trust the process, and you can know that things will happen when they are meant to happen. Which brings me to the third point, and the third way that we can effectively communicate with the universe is to not label situations as segregative or situations as negative. You see, as things happen into our lives, as we, in the second point, trust the process, if situations come into our life and we're so quick to say, that's a negative situation, this isn't a part of the process, what we do is that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. When we realize that everything in life is fundamentally neutral, we can tag the meanings as to what things mean in our life. Now, think of this in the most classic example that I use on this channel. A rainy day is a neutral prop. It's a neutral idea. To some people, it's a very positive thing, like myself, because I'm from Vegas and it doesn't rain very often. But to somebody from Seattle that's maybe so used to it, they may have a perspective that they don't like the rainy day. It makes them feel negative emotion. And to some people, it's neutral. It doesn't mean one thing or the other. That is a neutral idea. Now, in the same way, you might have a vision for what you want to create, and something might come that looks to be a roadblock. But if you refrain from calling it a roadblock and you realize that it is a part of the process, that it is there to teach you something, what then happens is it becomes integrative. It then becomes a part of the process, and you will move through it so much quicker. And not only will you move through it quicker, but it might lead you to something even more powerful. It might be something that shows you something more about yourself that then makes the process even better. So you see, you can be integrative with the process by not labeling things as roadblocks, by realizing that everything that happens for a reason, and the reason it happens is up to you and what you define it as. So everything in life is fundamentally neutral. The more you see things as integrative, the more powerful it is. Remember that when it comes to this process, if you simply decide to let go of the definitions that no longer serve you, as you let go of those identities and how you tag how the universe works, as you know, you are always 100% supported in what you believe to be true. You are always supported in a one-on-one reflection of whatever you define it to be. Then you can put your trust more in yourself. You can put the trust more in who you are. And as you buy into yourself more, you'll find that then things begin to work in a much easier fashion. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Feel free to like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't already, and also hit that little notification gear so that you're able to see my daily uploads. Under the new YouTube algorithm, you might not see the daily videos that I do. So other than that, I will see you guys on the next vid. Peace. Much love, namaste. And then secondly, as you let go and you understand, as you understand your ego and its relationship to the higher self, what you can then do is trust the process and align your emotions to that. You can really follow your intuition. And then thirdly, realize that every situation that happens in your life can be integrative if you simply define it to be. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoy this video. Feel free to like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't already, and also hit that little notification gear right next to the subscribe button so that you're able to see my daily videos. So with that being said, peace, much love, namaste.